It wasn't loud, but it was pointed. Are we pushing our troops too far? One lawmaker challenges the Pentagon on long deployments and the human cost behind military decisions.
Here, I recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Cisneros.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you and the ranking member for bringing us here today for this hearing. Very important to the nation. I want to thank our witnesses for all being here today. Mr. Secretary, the President recently made an announcement that the state activated National Guard would start receiving active duty pay for federal missions, and I believe you kind of made similar remarks as well. I'm happy to see that announcement because it brought the much-needed attention to this disparity. Whether you agree with missions or not, when guardsmen are called up for active duty and they really have no choice in the matter for homeland missions, often they are receiving inconsistent pay and benefits depending on their status. This issue has persisted for decades. This is why earlier this year, Rep. Bergman and I introduced Duty Status Reform Act, which would address the issue head on. I believe this is the right time to push this over the finish line. It's something the National Guard Bureau supports, the Council of Governors support. Just the other week, the service personnel chiefs were all here. They support it. TAG support it. So, Mr. Secretary, as a former member of the National Guard, I am asking you here today, would you consider supporting consolidating the 29 duty statuses for the military reserve component into a balanced and equitable system that would also help the National Guard receive retirement points when they're called up for these federal missions? Would you support that?
Congressman, thank you for your efforts on this. It makes a ton of sense, and we support these efforts for duty status reform in pursuit of things that work for the department and for the troops, because they deserve the kind of pay and benefits that are commensurate with active duty troops. So we would look forward to working with your office to get at duty status reform. I think now is the right time.
Thank you for that. General Kane, I ask you the same question. As an individual who's served in the Air National Guard, would you consider supporting duty status reform that's going to simplify this and help our National Guard troops?
Sir, I'll be careful to stay in my lane. My personal, not the chairman's opinion, as somebody who's lived the house of pain of 30 different duty statuses, would support it. As the chairman, I'll leave personnel, and you know this from your prior life, to our civilian leaders who do that. But I do think we owe a better set of options for our guardsmen and our reservists across the forces.
Well, thank you both for that. This is something that I think needs to get done and something I've been working on for years now. The National Guard Bureau supports it. And so I hope you will, like you said, work with us to get that done. OMB seems to be our roadblock, so I'm hoping you can kind of push that roadblock down so that we can finally get this done. Next question, Mr. Secretary. I take what we do for our personnel very seriously, and that sometimes I know you have stated right here today, our troops are ready, they will do anything if asked upon them, but I think as leaders sometimes we need to kind of protect them as well. And I worry about the USS Ford, which has now kind of been out there over 10 months. It's probably well over 300 days by the time it gets back to the United States. I just saw a thing today. It's going to be headed back here in a few days. You know, these people have gone pretty much all over the world. They crossed the equator multiple times. But I am interested, you know, I'm sure that was not in the gift map when it was first assigned, when they were deployed. And so what were some of the concerns, you know, that the Navy had when you made this modification, when it was brought forward to you that, hey, this is what extending them out to past 10 months is going to do. This is, you know, both on the troops and on the ship. What concerns did the Navy bring up for this?
It's a very fair question, and I can tell you, every week I stare at an orders book where I'm looking at troop movements or asset movements, and multiple times that included the Ford. And multiple times the operational requirements, whether it was down in Southcom or up to CENTCOM, demanded additional assets in real time, which through a tough decision-making process led to an extension. In consultation with the Navy, Admiral Caudle and his staff, they fairly represented readiness trade-offs, maintenance trade-offs, which are real things.
What are the concerns? What trade-offs are we making right here? I mean, really, we have 3 carriers in the area right now. How many do we really need? It's rather, I mean, it's a great show of force, but do we really need 3 carriers there? And you got one ARG there and another one on the way. You know, this is going to set back possibly deployments later on. It's going to have ramifications down the road extending for this much. And not only talking about, you know, we have service members that were kept away from their family for almost a year. How many missed the birth of a child, you know, before, you know, extending them in another 4 months? We need to keep this in consideration. We kind of make these modifications. And I hope these issues are being raised when you do these SDOB books, right? And people are actually making these decisions.
Gentleman's time's expired. Chair, I recognize
This hearing moment highlights a side of military decision-making that often goes unnoticed, the human cost. Representative Cisneros didn't come in with theatrics or sharp attacks, but with a focused concern, how extended deployments are affecting the very people tasked with carrying them out. At the center of the conversation was the USS Ford, a major U.S. aircraft carrier that has been deployed far longer than originally planned. And the question was simple, but powerful. How many assets are enough, and at what cost? Before even getting to the deployment issue, Cisneros addressed a long-standing concern affecting National Guard members: inconsistent pay and benefits. His push for duty status reform reflects a broader effort to bring fairness and clarity to a system that has frustrated service members for years. Secretary Hegseth's agreement here was notable. It showed that, at least on this issue, there's bipartisan recognition that reform is overdue. It set the tone for a discussion rooted in practical concerns rather than political division. But the real tension came when the focus shifted to the extended deployment of the USS Ford. Cisneros raised concerns that resonate far beyond military strategy: missed family moments, increased strain on personnel, and long-term impacts on readiness. These aren't abstract ideas, they're real consequences faced by service members and their families. Extending deployments might meet immediate operational needs, but it also creates ripple effects that can last long after the mission ends. Secretary Hegseth acknowledged the difficulty of these decisions, explaining that operational demands often force leaders to make tough trade-offs. The presence of multiple carriers in the region reflects a strong show of force, but it also raises strategic questions. Is this level of deployment necessary, or is it stretching resources too thin? Cisneros' follow-up question, how many do we really need, cuts right to the heart of that debate. It's not just about capability, but about balance. What stands out in this exchange is the contrast between strategic necessity and human impact. Military leaders must respond to evolving threats, but they also have a responsibility to protect the well-being of their personnel. This moment serves as a reminder that behind every deployment order are individuals, people with families, responsibilities, and limits. As global tensions continue, these are the kinds of questions that will shape not just military outcomes, but the lives of those who serve.